So, is AI coming for your job? You see the headlines everywhere, right? One day everything's fine. The next, it's an automation apocalypse. But the truth is, most of this debate has been, well, kind of based on flawed ideas. What if we've been looking at this whole thing completely backward? Today, we're diving into some incredible new research that cuts right through the hype to show us what's really going on.
This is the question, isn't it? The one that keeps a lot of us up at night, and for good reason. But to get a real answer, we've got to navigate this huge gap between the wild speculation and the on-the-ground reality. And look, this slide right here just nails the problem. On one side, you have the hype, headlines screaming that AI could theoretically automate like 94% of programming tasks. But then you look at the reality, the hard data on what's actually being used in the workplace today, it's closer to 33%. That is a massive disconnect. So what's causing it?
To get to the truth, we first have to separate the signal from all that noise. For years, the whole conversation has been dominated by these really alarming predictions based on what AI could do, in a perfect, theoretical world.
See, the problem is that all those old forecasts were based on what AI could do in a lab, not in a real business. Just because an AI can perform a task doesn't mean a company has actually integrated it, or that it's legal, or even that it's cost-effective. There's a huge difference between capability and adoption.
And this, right here, is basically the nail in the coffin for that old way of thinking. This new research found that an AI's theoretical ability has no statistically significant relationship with actual employment growth. Let me say that again, no relationship. In other words, it was just the wrong metric. We needed a better tool.
And that brings us to the real breakthrough. This research gives us a powerful new way to measure what AI is actually doing in the economy. Right now, today. It's a new metric they're calling observed exposure. And honestly, it's a pretty simple idea when you break it down. It combines what AI can theoretically do with hard data on how professionals are actually using it on the job. It anchors the whole thing in reality, focusing on what is happening, not just what might happen.
Here's how they do it, in 3 basic steps. First, they take a job and list out every single task it involves. Second, they figure out if AI is theoretically capable of doing each of those tasks. And third, and this is the real game changer, they measure the actual usage of AI for those tasks out in the real world. It gives us a much, much sharper picture.
This new data also helps us answer a really important question. Is AI here to replace us, that's automation, or is it here to make us better at our jobs, which is augmentation? Because as you can see, the impact on the job market is completely different depending on the answer.
So now that we're armed with this much better way of measuring things, what did the researchers actually find? Well, the first big discovery completely redraws the map of automation, and frankly, it's a real surprise. Okay, take a look at this chart. That outer blue shape, that's AI's potential. See how it just spikes in those brainy cognitive fields like computer and math? But now, look at that inner green shape. That's robotics, and it spikes in physical jobs, production, construction. They're almost perfect mirror images of each other. It's kind of wild.
So what this does is it neatly splits the entire job market into 3 distinct zones. You've got a high AI zone for knowledge work, a high robot zone for physical labor, and then this mixed zone in the middle. The big takeaway here is that automation pressure isn't this one single wave hitting everyone. The kind of pressure you're facing really depends on what you do for a living.
And that leads us to the next huge finding. And this one completely flips the script on who we thought was most at risk from AI.
Get ready for this, because it turns the whole narrative on its head. We've been told over and over that AI is a threat to low-wage jobs, right? But the data, for now at least, shows the exact opposite. The workers most exposed to AI right now are actually higher-wage, higher education professionals. This means the immediate challenge isn't about protecting one group, but about helping a very different, very skilled group of workers adapt.
I mean, think about it like this. Right now, workers in the jobs most exposed to AI actually earn a 47% wage premium compared to those with no exposure at all. And get this, if you have a graduate degree, you are 4 times more likely to be in this highly exposed group. The disruption isn't starting at the bottom, it's starting at the top. Okay, so if these high-paying jobs are the most exposed, does that mean we're seeing mass layoffs? Well, the data gives us our first real clue about what's actually happening out there on the ground. And here's the good news, for now anyway. The answer is no. we're not seeing any big, measurable spike in unemployment for these AI-exposed roles. But, and this is a huge but, there's another signal, a much more subtle one, that's starting to flash red. And here it is. This is the warning shot. The job finding rate for young folks, people in their early 20s just trying to break into these highly exposed fields, has already dropped by 14%. So while companies might not be firing their current employees, they are hiring fewer new ones. That entry-level pipeline is getting squeezed.
So the full storm hasn't really hit yet, but the warning signs are definitely there. And that brings us to the final and maybe most practical takeaway. What are the key things we all need to be watching? Well, this research gives us a really clear dashboard.
This right here, this is your watch list. Think of these 6 metrics as the canaries in the coal mine. Is that hiring rate for young workers going to keep falling? Is that gap between what AI can do and what it is doing going to close faster? Is that 47% wage premium going to start to disappear? These are the numbers that are going to tell us when this thing really starts to accelerate.
Look, at the end of the day, this new data makes one thing crystal clear. A slow-motion disruption has already begun. So the real question isn't if our jobs are going to be affected anymore. The question is, what are we, our companies, our governments, gonna do about what's coming?